Well, now that we had two wonderful presentations on mobile esports, I think people here are probably very excited about the prospects of mobile esports. So, I actually gave a presentation at PG Connect Vancouver last year, also kind of giving an overview 101 of mobile esports, and it's grown quite a bit in the past year. And so I've been fortunate to organize a couple of live mobile esports events in the past year as well. So this presentation is really more about sharing my experiences with the events that I hosted. So by no means is this a guideline of how you should do an event, but more about kind of the learnings that I've had along the way. So if any developers out here or third parties that are interested in hosting mobile esports events, hopefully this will be helpful to you. So before we jump in, it'd be probably useful for everyone to know what MoEsport is. So, I've been in mobile gaming for a good couple of years, where I worked in Beijing, I worked in Vancouver, and really saw the prospect of the growth in mobile esports. So last year I started a mobile esports content site called MoEsport. So if you Google in mobile esports, chances are you'll come across my site or one of my articles. And from just writing content about mobile esports games, went on to produce a couple of online and live esports events, particularly for Clash Royale. So that image there is actually a live event that I produced with an organization called Northern Arena in Toronto. So one of the first big live Clash Royale events in North America, and it was very successful. So jumping right into it, so if you are interested in producing a mobile esports event, or even this is a mobile gaming event, let's talk about purpose. Why do you want to put together this event? Aside from having a lot of money that you might want to blow. So first, showcase. If you have a new game and you want to show people how this game is played and why this is fun, what better way to do it than to be showcasing it through a live event or an online event? Education. So a couple of the presentations talked about Brawl Stars, the new Supercell game. So they didn't mention this as a mobile esports game, but how come everyone's talking about it as a mobile esports? Because by introducing the game, they had a live 3-on-3 tournament in which they had a live commentator, they had players that were playing live against each other, and instantly it just captured the imagination of everyone that this can be a mobile esports. Engagement. So, mobile gaming developers, obviously, you guys are very familiar with live operations. And in a sense, running events is a part of live ops. Keeping people engaged, keeping people interested in your game, watching live competitions, as well as, having players to be able to compete in these competitions as well. And, down the line, it might also be a way for gaming companies to monetize through live and online events. And of course, sponsorship, and this pertains particularly to third-party event organizers such as myself. So, as an example, Northern Arena, one of their biggest sponsors is Bell Mobility. So they're kind of like the Verizon Wireless of Canada, and they love mobile. So we produced one Clash Royale event in Toronto, and they actually came back to us and said that, okay, can you guys do another one for Montreal? And sponsors, especially sponsors that are in the mobile space, they want this opportunity to showcase and show their brands. So run an event and give them a reason to sponsor your events. So moving on to, okay, now you decide that you want to have an event and you know the purpose. How do you want to position your event? So there's no right way of doing it. Just because your game is a casual game like Candy Crush doesn't mean that you can't make it super competitive. And do you want this event to be open to all your players, or do you want to have a league in which you're constantly inviting the pros? And just to show you that even within a game, you can have events across different spectrums. Clash Royale, obviously, they made it open to everyone. But the event that they had last December, North American Open, it was wacky. They had people playing while they were being rolled around in a ball. It was it didn't seem like an esports event, but there was a big viewership for it. And now the one that they're running, the Crown Championship, it's a much more kind of professionally ran event, and they're really trying to pit the top players in the game against each other for a big prize pool. Same thing with Hearthstone. Usually it's a very competitive circuit, but Red Bull has these casual events in which they're running Hearthstone competition in a completely different format, a draft format, which is not official, but it's a lot of fun to watch. So think about how you want to position your event. And then production. So production is a really vague word that I use. Obviously, running an event, all of it is production, right? But these are some considerations that I want to throw out before you even start putting together your event. How long do you want to run your event? Is this going to be a one-off? Are you going to have qualifiers? Is this going to be a league? And once you know how long you want to run this, what are the resources that you have? So I would think that a lot of companies, you're probably bootstrapping these events. Obviously, if you have the resources, hire ESL and hire NG, hire these big organizations to help you run this. They know what they're doing. But if you're trying to do something in-house, you're going to want to see if you have your artists that are able to create your assets. You want to see if your community managers are able to stream. So what kind of resources do you have to work with? And do you want to do an online event, or do you have the resources to pull off a live event? And if you have a live event, where is it going to be? Is it going to be in Helsinki, LA, wherever your company is based? And what's the advantages or disadvantages of that? So once you have an idea of what you want to produce, put together a budget. And chances are, mobile gaming companies, you probably don't have a budget for live event production. So start thinking about that and thinking about why do we want to put a budget for to put together this live event, and that goes back to the purpose which I said earlier. And once you have that together, put together your proposal. And I'm a product marketing guy, so I like to put together a nice little positioning statement of why we're doing this, right? So taking the positioning, taking the purpose, put together a small sentence like this. So my event name will be a whatever position your event would be, held live or online on whatever date you set your event to be, and what's the aim of the event, right? The event will aim to whatever purpose. So as an exercise, if I was to do this with my Clash Royale Montreal event, so it was a casual event that was open to all players. They were held across 2 days. So one day was a qualifier, and another day was a live tournament. And it was brought to you by Northern Arena and MoEsport. So the event, it was in Montreal. We didn't expect to bring the best of the best from all across the world to compete there. So we wanted to make it casual. It was a local Clash Royale event in which local players had a chance to compete against hand-picked ambassadors, some of the influencers in the Clash Royale community, for $8,000 prize pool. All right, so now you know what you want to put together. How are you going to reach the audience, and how are you going to get them to want to watch your event? So let's segment the people that you want to target first, from the core to everyone. So special invites, you have your influencers, your top players. These are the people that the most highly engaged users of your game. You definitely want them to tune in. And then, of course, the participants. Are you going to have a sign-up previous to the event, in which people would be able to register and know ahead of time when they're going to play? Or if you have a live event, are you going to be having drop-in participants? So a third party in Malaysia held a Clash Royale event at a mall, and it was actually really successful. And they had no idea how many people were going to show up, but I think a couple hundred people just showed up in the mall and started playing Clash Royale. So you would want to allocate an audience number for that. Live spectators, if you have a live event, of course. So try to at least have a guess of how many people would be interested in attending this live event. It could be in the hundreds, or it could be the thousands, right? It depends on how you're going to budget for that. And of course, the online viewers, which I think is most important, because you want this is the number that's going to be most significant. This is the number that you want to have to be as big as possible. So with this in mind, then, how are you going to get these people to be interested in your event? And so those 4 circles that I have in the middle are kind of your resources and your ways to reach the audience that would be interested in this event. So of course, as a game publisher, this is an event based on your game. Or if you're a third party, this is an event based on their game. So you definitely want them to be involved. And the best thing you can get out of the developer is for them to have an in-game notification of, hey, this event is going on now. Why don't you tune in on Twitch? And esports teams, of course, esports, especially with League and Dota and CSGO, it's all about the teams, and teams have their own following. So if you can get teams involved with the competition, that's another source of marketing and promotion for you to get your word out of your event. And of course, it's kind of more basic stuff: social media, other marketing. And so, I've had in that chart, in the core of this, as the influencers. So every esports event that you see, there are, and this is a very vague definition of influencers, which I'll jump into. influencers are very key to drive audience into an event because they're kind of like your headliners, right? If you go to a WWE event, this is your The Rock or Randy Orton, or if you go to a basketball event, this is your LeBron James. This is why people want to watch your event. And so for mobile esports or just esports in general, I define influencers under 3 categories. One, of course, the big celebrities, right? So at the bottom, that's Ronaldo, the Brazilian one, not the Portuguese one. He was at the League of Legends finals in Brazil. So he was just there to shake hands with the winners, but it was cool to be able to build that Ronaldo was there. And on the top was the Clash Royale event in December. So that's Rob Corddry from The Daily Show. So he was actually hosting that event. But in a sense, it actually didn't turn out very well because he didn't know the game. It was very awkward to have a host to be hosting this gaming event in which he knew nothing about. So I was at an esports event in April, and the theme was authenticity. You want these people to be participating in an event to be authentic. People that actually care about your game, so that it comes across as an authentic experience. And then you have your top players. So this is especially important for the more kind of core mobile esports experience. People want to see the best of the best go at it. So if you're having an event, make sure that you have some of the top players, if not all of them, to be in this event. And then the third is actually what I think is most important. A vague category which I define as community leaders. So they could be your Reddit influencers, your YouTubers, your streamers, but people that are really active with your game, and people that play your game know who they are. So for example, if you play Clash Royale or Clash of Clans, you know Chief Pat. If you play Hearthstone, you know Amaz, Hafu, Disguised Toast, these people. And so if you have an event on these games, another way to draw interest in these games is to have the influencers participate or be a shellcaster. So these are the people that you want to get involved. And as an example, so I hosted my first Clash Royale live event in Toronto. So I didn't have the luxury of having a big budget to get the biggest names, even in mobile esports, to be part of my event. So what I did was I had one of my writers. He's also the subreddit mod for Clash Royale, and he just started streaming. So his name is Will. So super passionate about the game, and he knew the game from inside out. And I thought that he'd make a great shellcaster. And along with him, I also brought along a streamer, beautiful-looking girl who was also a hardcore gamer called Dina. So they're both from Washington, D.C., and I flew them out to Toronto to be my showcasters for the event. And they were super passionate about it, super professional. They did such a great job. And this is actually one of my favorite pictures. And after the event, I was worn out. I went up to them and said that you guys did such an amazing job. And from that point on, it just snowballed. They became more well-known in the community. And we talked about the Crown Royale Championship. So yeah, now because of that first gig, they got more involved in the community, and they both landed jobs as showcasters and hosts for the Crown Royale Championship. So I was really happy to see that from that first showcasting experience, they were able to do more and more. And so the best way is to build your own community leaders within your game rather than to just pluck names from elsewhere. And so, we talked about influencers that are able to draw people to want to view your event. So, another thing that's been really popular recently is just, incentivizing viewers to view your event based on, giving away freebies. So, as 2 examples, the left is Rocket League. So, Rocket League had their World Championship, I think it was a couple weeks ago, if not last month, and super successful. They had close to 200K concurrent viewers for Rocket League. I mean, it was crazy. And obviously, it was promoted really well, not just through Twitch, not just through the social media, but also in-game. So they actually incentivized their players to tune in-game. And so what they did was just watch the match and be on Twitch chat, and they would have random drops of goodies at random times throughout the match. So you would want to tune in for the whole match just to see if you get that get that random prize. And of course, the production was great. So while people were waiting for the prize, they got to see, oh wow, this is actually pretty fun to watch. So it's a great way to display and showcase what a good event that was. And on the right is actually something from Hearthstone. So not as intense, but something really simple. They just had a choose a champion before the World Championships, in which you pick which champion you think will win, and the further along they go in the championship bracket, the bigger the prize that you get. So even if you don't know who these people are, you feel invested, right? You feel that, okay, I want to cheer on this guy called Amnesiac because he seems like he's the best player, and if he does well, I'm going to get goodies. And rules and prizes, so in Bill's presentation, if you were here, he emphasized about fairness. And when you have a competition and there's money at stake and there is pride at stake, people would do whatever they can to win. And obviously I follow the Clash Royale community very closely, and some of the competitions, especially online competitions, there are a lot of little ways to cheat. For example, this kid is a very good player, so how do I know that he's not playing on an account of someone else, right? So even if it's a live championship, maybe he'll use his phone to help me qualify, and I get to participate in the live championship. So make sure that as you run this event, you have the rules set in stone, and if there's cheating, if there's something that let's say a disconnect, it's clear what's going to happen, so that the experience for the players, they as they're coming in, it seems fair, and it seems like you know what you're doing, because you can spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars producing an event, but if that experience is bad due to poor regulations, they're going to walk away unhappy. And then logistics. So I put all this in one slide, but actually this is probably one of the most important parts. So as you're putting together this event, you got to think about, okay, what platform do I want to put this on? Obviously everyone thinks Twitch, but there's a lot of events or just kind of mobile gaming competitions that are being hosted on YouTube and Facebook right now. So think about what are the advantages and disadvantages of each platform. So Twitch has a lot of neat tools, but if you have a big Facebook audience, you have over 10 million likes, maybe it just makes more sense to host the event on your Facebook channel, so that instantly your people are getting notifications of your live event. And scheduling. So it seems like this audience doesn't watch Twitch very often, but if you tune in on Twitch on a weekend, there are literally hundreds of streams and events that are going on, because that's the prime time for having esports events. So if you know that's the audience that you're targeting, you might want to fix your schedule up a little bit so that it doesn't conflict with a League of Legends championship if that's the audience you're going after. So be aware of scheduling, and making sure that the influencers that you want to come also have the time to participate in your event. And then especially for online events, connectivity and communication. So have online events sounds like a good idea, but there's so many uncertainties in play. So let's say I'm running a tournament in which I have to have one match after another. How do I make sure that the next participant is ready to jump into that match? What would happen if there was a disconnect? And how do I chat with these people? What if I want them on webcam? So ahead of time, you got to think about these logistics, and especially Wi-Fi. One of the advantages of mobile is the fact that we can have a tournament here. Everyone pull out your phone and we can start playing the game, and I can call it a tournament. But I have to make sure that the connectivity can handle so many devices playing this game at once without lag. So a lot of things that you have to consider for logistics. And I have a little video to show you. This is from back in last November. So Amazon's actually making a big play in mobile gaming competition. And so they had the first live event called Champions of Fire in Vegas. And it was the first time, so obviously things didn't go as smooth. So this is an example of what can happen if you just happen to forget something in your logistics. So if you mind playing the video.
So I can tell you that. You ate some bad fruit. You got fruit poisoning. Oh, and a rough start for Bodhi at just 2:09. He's already killed his first life. I pressed the watch off.
The juice is loose.
Oh no! And Bodhi's watching the ad. This is an incredibly bad piece of luck here.
And that is going to be the end of that, because that ad is going to run through most of his time. Oh my God.
Sorry about that. And look.
So I don't know if you guys caught what happened there. So this game had a in-game ad whenever you die, and unfortunately, instead of clicking play again, he clicked on the ad. So, and this is competition for money, right? So yeah, I mean, as a game developer, make sure that if you have a competition with your game, people are aware of this stuff. So, but no, Amazon recovered, and they actually had an event in New York just this past weekend called the Mobile Masters, and so the event had Summoner's War, Vainglory, and Hearthstone. So guess which one of these 3 games had the bigger audience? Summoner's War. So this was a surprise to a lot of people because Hearthstone and Vainglory are the more established games. But I mean, look at the average viewers number. Summoner's War blew the other 2 games away. The biggest reason is because there's not a lot of Summoners Wars events that are out there. So, fatigue can also play into consideration. Vainglory is on, almost every day. But it's just amazing and a good example to show that, just because your game is not known as a mobile esport doesn't mean that, it can't succeed, as an event. So. So that kind of wraps up my presentation, and I'm going to skip through this part. But I did a presentation last year at PG Connects Vancouver talking about what to expect from mobile esports, and so most of my 2016 predictions came true. So we have more mobile esports games, bigger cash prizes. We have somewhat more statistics for mobile games, but I think in that area that can be a big improvement, and of course higher production value for events and tournaments. And so. Updating my predictions, not as bold, but I think just the term of mobile esports, the presentation earlier with Vibe, I heard terms competitive mobile gaming, mobile esports, professional mobile esports, and I think mobile esports right now as a term is very vague, and I think as this industry matures a little bit more, we're going to come up with a more definitive answer of what exactly is a mobile esports, or if a game is a mobile game, can it have a mobile esports on top of being a mobile game? Differentiation from mainstream esports. So again, the previous presentation talked a little bit about that. And growth disparity. So I didn't talk anything about China, but mobile esports is huge in China, especially led by Honor of Kings, a game with 50 million MAU. It's crazy over there. And I think the disparity is, at least for the next year, is going to be even greater, in which Asia would take the lead. EU is growing a lot faster as well. But yeah, I mean, hopefully here in North America we can catch up. And finally, bigger platform network production partnerships. I think that's a nice segue into the panel. So, big things that are happening with skills, with ESL, with partnerships with game developers. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say on that with the next panel.
Thank you very much. So.